Hello everyone and welcome to our channel. Today we will plunge into one of the most tense and unpredictable geopolitical scenarios of today. Iran's recent retaliation against Israel and the growing fear that this conflict can climb to something much greater, perhaps even what many call a third world war. The complexity of this situation is immense, and branches can be felt all over the globe. What we are witnessing is not just a regional confrontation, but a boundary test for global stability, with powerful actors observing each movement and every decision. The question that hangs in the air is, are we on the verge of a conflict of catastrophic proportions, or is there still room for diplomacy and broken? Let's look at the facts and possibilities. To understand the severity of the current moment, we need to go back to October 2023. It was during this time that the conflict between Israel and Iran, which was already boiled behind the scenes for decades, reached a new and dangerous level. The brutal attack of Hamas, a group considered ally and funded by Iran against Israel, was the fuse for a series of events that brought us here. This attack was not just an act of isolated violence. It was perceived by Israel as a direct, orchestrated aggression, or at least encouraged by Tehran, intensifying the already deep distrust and animosity between the two nations. Israel's response was immediate and forceful, and since then, the region has been a gunpowder barrel, with each action generating a reaction, and each reaction further raising the bet. The line between the war by power of attorney and the direct confrontation has become increasingly faint, and the world is apprehensive with each new development. In the months following the October attack, Israel intensified its operations, not only in Gaza, but also in a broader and more confidential campaign against Iran. Intelligence reports and expert analysis indicates that Israel has achieved deep infiltration into Iranian intelligence networks. This capacity has allowed Israel to perform surgical and highly effective attacks, eliminating key figures from the Iranian regime, including high-ranking military leaders and prominent nuclear scientists. These operations were not mere acts of retaliation. They represented a strategic effort to dismantle the Iranian capacity to project power and develop weapons, especially with regard to their nuclear program. The accuracy and success of these actions demonstrate remarkable sophistication on the part of Israeli intelligence, which has managed to operate in enemy territory with surprising effectiveness, reaching high-value targets and causing a significant impact on Iran's security structure. The series of Israeli attacks not only eliminated important individuals, but also exposed critical vulnerabilities in the Iranian regime. The apparent ease with which Israel has managed to reach its targets, often within Iranian borders or neighboring countries where Iran has a strong presence, has revealed a shocking loss of control over national security by Tehran. This exposure of weaknesses is not just a military issue. It has profound political and social implications. For a regime that based much of its legitimacy on the ability to protect its citizens and interests, the perception of vulnerability can be devastating. The Iranian population, already facing economic difficulties and internal dissatisfaction, can begin to question the competence and strength of its leaders. This erosion of internal confidence, combined with external pressure, creates an environment of instability that can have unpredictable consequences for the future of Iran and the dynamics of power throughout the Middle East. The security of the regime, previously seen as unshakable, now seems to be under unprecedented scrutiny. Faced with increasing internal and external pressures, and with the perception of their committed sovereignty and security, Iran finally responded directly and massively. On the night of June 13th to 14th, 2025, the world arrested breathing by witnessing an unprecedented attack. Iran has launched a dam of approximately 300 missiles and drones towards Israel, with Tel Aviv being one of the main targets. The following images were shocking: explosions illuminating the night sky, warning sirens sounding incessantly, and reports of destruction and victims in the Israeli capital. This attack was not just a demonstration of strength, but a clear sign that Iran was willing to raise the level of confrontation, abandoning the war by power of attorney and going to a direct clash, something many analysts had feared for years. The scale and intensity of the attack caught many by surprise, and Israel's response was anxiously awaited, with the risk of even greater climbing over the region. Despite the magnitude of the Iranian attack with hundreds of missiles and drones, later analysis revealed a strategic complexity behind the apparent fury. Iran's attack, although devastating in its immediate consequences, seemed to have a more symbolic objective and demonstration of strength than strategic annihilation. Many of the projectiles were intercepted by Israel's anti-missile defense systems, such as the Iron Dome, and by Allied forces in the region. In contrast, previous Israeli attacks, characterized by their accuracy and focus on high-value targets, caused much more significant and lasting damage to Iran's military and nuclear capabilities. While Iran sought to send a message of retaliation and power, Israel, with its clandestine operations and surgical attacks, managed to dismantle critical infrastructures, eliminate leaders and leaders' key scientists, and ultimately weaken Iran's ability to develop advanced weapons and project its influence. The difference in approach and results is stark. One side seeking a strength of strength, the other a strategic disablement. The series of setbacks suffered by Iran, both by the direct attacks of Israel and the inability of its allies of containing the offensive Israeli, has had a profound impact on its regional influence. Groups like Hamas in Palestine and Hezbollah in Lebanon, which for years have been pillars of the Iranian strategy for projection of power and regional destabilization, are visibly weakened. Hamas suffered massive losses in Gaza, and its operational capacity was severely compromised. Hezbollah, in turn, has been the target of continuous Israeli attacks that aim to degrade their military capabilities and their infrastructure. This weakening of its proxies represents a significant blow to the Iranian strategy of asymmetrical war and siege to Israel. The perception that Iran cannot effectively protect its allies or retaliate against Israeli attacks has led to questioning their leadership and power in the region, with other regional actors re-evaluating their alliances and strategies. The Iranian web of influence, once so robust, begins to show signs of wear and disintegration. Parallel to external challenges, Iran faces increasing internal dissatisfaction, a factor that cannot be underestimated in the equation of its stability. The Iranian population has been harshly hit by a series of economic crises, exacerbated by years of international sanctions and mismanagement. Galopant inflation, high unemployment, and the scarcity of basic goods have generated widespread discontent. In addition, military operations and involvement in regional conflicts, which consume vast resources, are seen by many as a deviation of priorities regarding the urgent needs of the people. Internal repression, lack of civil liberties, and endemic corruption only increase frustration. This combination of economic, social, and political factors creates a cauldron of dissatisfaction that can, at any time, overflow in large-scale protests, challenging the authority of the regime. Iran's stability, therefore, not only depending on its ability to face external threats, but also on its ability to manage and respond to the growing demands and frustrations of its own population. Faced with such a complex and volatile scenario, Iran is in a strategic crossroads, with two main options, each with its own deep implications for the future of the region and the regime itself. The first option would be to declare a symbolic victory, perhaps claiming that the massive retaliation of June 13th was sufficient to restore his honor and dissuade Israel from future attacks. This approach would allow Iran to discourage conflict, focus on its internal problems, and try to rebuild its economy and regional influence more gradually. It would be a pragmatic movement, seeking to avoid direct and prolonged confrontation that could have catastrophic consequences. The second option, and the most dangerous, would be further climbing the conflict. This could involve new attacks on Israel, perhaps more intensely or using more sophisticated weapons, or even the activation of other proxies in the region to open new battle fronts. This choice, however, carries an immense risk of instability and an even more striking response on the part of Israel and its allies, pushing the region into a total abyss. The decision that Tehran will make in the coming days and weeks will be crucial to determine the course of events. If Iran chooses to continue attacking Israel, the consequences may be devastating and unpredictable. A continuous climb could lead to a much broader regional conflict, dragging other powers to the fight. Israel, with the support of its allies, including the United States, would certainly respond in full force, aiming not only the Iranian military capabilities, but perhaps even the infrastructure of the regime. In this scenario, the possibility of external military intervention to dismantle Iran's nuclear abilities or to protect regional security would become much more real. The end result of such confrontation could be the fall of the Iranian regime, either by an external intervention or an internal revolt exacerbated by war. History shows us that regimes under extreme pressure, especially when facing military defeats and popular discontent, are vulnerable to collapse. The choice of climbing, therefore, is not just a matter of military strategy, but a risky bet on the regime's own survival. Despite the severity of the situation and the increase of tensions, the likelihood of a Third World War, in the sense of a global conflict involving the great world powers, is still considered low by many analysts. Although Russia and China maintain relations with Iran and have interests in destabilizing the global order led by the US, it is unlikely to be directly involved in a large-scale military conflict in the Middle East. Both countries have their own strategic and economic priorities, and a global war would bring prohibitive costs to all involved. Russia's focus is on Ukraine and its sphere of influence in Eastern Europe, while China is more concerned with Taiwan and its economic and military rise in Indo-Pacific. Although they may provide limited diplomatic or material support, a direct military intervention that put them in confrontation with the United States and their allies is a scenario they probably want to avoid. Rhetoric may be strong, but direct action is another story. In short, the Middle East remains a gunpowder barrel, and the recent Iranian retaliation has added a new layer of complexity and danger. The way Israel and Iran will manage this crisis will determine not only the future of its nations, but also the stability of the entire region. It is a moment of great uncertainty, where each movement can have global consequences. We will continue to closely monitor all developments and bring the most in-depth analyses to you. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel for more updates and analysis of this and other crucial topics. Leave your comments below and share your opinions about what can happen next. Thanks for watching and see you next time.